So let's start straight away with the first topic. What would be your negotiation position once you have exited, left the EU? So the Brexit side is saying that the UK would have a very, very strong negotiation position, and the EU would give the UK a perfect bespoke deal where the UK can have full access to the single market without all the things you don't like, or a lot of people don't like about the EU. So you have no more immigration, you can control your borders, you don't have to pay into money to the EU, and you also don't have to follow the rules and regulations anymore. So really the perfect, nice, have the cake and eat it deal. The reason they say why you will get that deal is because you buy more from the EU than the EU buys from you. So the EU has actually a trade surplus with the UK, and they're absolutely right with that. That's true. If you net the imports-exports between the UK and the EU is actually making more money by exporting to you than you make money of exporting to the EU. So the problem is this argumentation is really a fallacy, and I will explain you why. You buy more from Tesco's than Tesco's buys from you. Or you can take any other supermarket. Tesco's has a trade surplus with you. They earn more from you than you earn from them. Now, following the logic of the Brexit side, you would have to be able to walk into a Tesco's and demand a special deal, special treatment. You could go and say, I want to be greeted by my name, I want to get a bubble, I want a red carpet rolled out when I go to a Tesco's, because I buy more from you than you buy from me. Now, I mean, you can try that, but at best you will be laughed at, and at worst they will call the police and you will be sent to an asylum. And of course there's a reason for that. And the reason is that you are just one out of millions of customers. You just represent a tiny, tiny share of the total revenue, and they can afford to lose you. And that's why even though you have Tesco's has a trade surplus with you, you have a very bad negotiation position with Tesco's because you're not that important to them. It's actually even the other way around. If you start boycotting the Tesco's in your neighborhood and it's the only supermarket around, you actually have the problem, and you will have to travel very far to get to another supermarket. So on the other side, let's look at another example. Imagine you have a hairdresser in your area. He just opened his salon, and you're just one out of two regular customers. There, the situation is very different, because that hairdresser cannot really afford to lose you. And there, your negotiation position is very strong. There you can go and say, yeah, I would like to be greeted by name, I would like to get an espresso every time I come to you, and I would like to get a nice head massage every time after you cut my hair. And he will probably do it, because you are a very important customer of his. He cannot afford to lose you. So you see, you have these in both examples. You buy more from them than they buy from you, but your negotiation position is totally different. And this is why, this is because it's not how much, whether one party buys more from the other party than the other way around. What matters is how big is the share one party is generating in revenue. That is really driving the negotiation position. Now, how does the negotiation position, how does that look like between the UK and the EU? Now, it's none of these two extremes really, but unfortunately, the UK is not that far away from the hairdressers situation, because 45% of the UK's exports go to the EU. So it's almost half of your exports would be subject to tariffs or regulatory barriers if you should be outside the single market. On the other hand, the EU exports only 15% to the UK. So if there are suddenly tariffs, only 15% of their exports will be concerned. So you can actually say the EU's negotiation position is 3 times better than the UK's negotiation position. And I mean, I've seen negotiations, and the way they work is that you don't just look at what you win, you also look at what the other guy can lose. And if you know that the other guy can lose much more than you, then typically what you do, you sit back and wait until the other party makes concessions. For example, when you buy a house and you know that the other guy goes through a divorce and needs the money now, then you just sit back and wait until the price comes down and comes down and comes down, until you really feel you've made a good deal. It's because you have a stronger negotiation position. So with the EU having a 3 times stronger negotiation position, I have a tough time imagining how you will get a deal where you get everything you want and the EU gives you everything you want and they get nothing out of it. But the problem is, it's actually worse than that, because a trade deal between the EU and the UK would have to be agreed unanimously by all 27 member states of the EU after you've left. And if you look at how these member states will think whether they should give a trade deal to the UK or not, they will not look at the entire EU's share, but they will look at their own share. And apart from Ireland, which probably would have a problem because they have quite a lot of exports going to the UK, no country in the EU really has that much of a huge share of their exports going to the UK. And this is because they mainly trade amongst themselves. For example, if you look at Germany, Germany has something like 7.8% of their exports going to the UK. Not negligible, but not really that huge. Switzerland, for example, makes 4.5% of their exports, so not that much less. And as I explained last time, in the last video, Switzerland totally failed to get a deal from the EU where they could get access to the single market without free movement of people or contributions to the EU budget. So I don't see why they will bend over backwards, as the Brexit people say, to get a deal with the UK, because your share is not really that big. But it's actually worse than that, because there are several countries in especially in Eastern Europe, which hardly trade at all with the UK. I mean, for example, Bulgaria has only 2.2% of their exports going to the UK. So, from their perspective, they have not much to gain by giving you access to the single market. But what they are very interested in is your contributions to the EU budget, which they, after you have left the EU, they will lose anyway, so they will try to gain them back in these negotiations. Another thing they care about is being able to send workers to the United Kingdom, have free movement of people, because a lot of the Eastern European workers in the UK send back a lot of remittances into these countries. So this is what they care about. And if you put yourself into the perspective of these countries, I mean, why would you agree to a deal with the UK unless you get either some money via contributions, or you can, and you can still send your workers to the UK? Without that, you will use your veto and stop the deal until you get what you want. Now, the Brexit people hope probably that, almighty Germany will fix it. Germany will then put pressure on these countries to agree to a deal anyway, because of the car industry. But again, the share of Germany is just not that huge, 7.5%, and the German car industry is not that price sensitive. So if there was no trade deal, there would be 5% applied on car exports from Germany to the UK, and whether you buy a Mercedes for 5% more or less, because these are high-end cars, it doesn't matter that much. On the other hand, the British car industry, which is a great success story actually, which is now bigger than the French car industry, because foreign companies have invested in the UK and built car factories. They will have a hard time because these factories have been mainly built for export into the EU market, and these are not, by the majority, not high value cars. So it's going to be just, so if they have 5% applied, this will be a problem for the British car industry, and all these car makers would have no reason anymore to put a factory into the UK, because they might suddenly be subject to tariffs. So Germany is A, not that concerned, and B, they have a much bigger fear than not having a trade deal with the UK. Their biggest fear is the breakup of the single market and the European Union, because Germany lives off exports. Exports is the lifeblood of their economy, and by far their biggest export market is the EU single market. So their absolute nightmare is that their export markets breaks down. Suddenly trade barriers everywhere, which stops them to export. So they are actually very motivated to make an example out of the UK, to show everyone, look, UK tried it and it didn't work. They ended up with no deal at all. Because if they agree to the UK having that super special deal, then all the other countries, especially those who contribute a lot into the EU budget, will try to do exactly the same thing. They will leave and then negotiate from the outside a new trade deal. So Germany, I don't see how you will make these 27 countries of the EU give you the deal you want. I don't see how. And the next time maybe you hear the Brexit side telling you that we should just, don't worry, we just leave, and then the EU gives us exactly the deal we want, then ask them, how are you going to do this? And if they then tell you, well, because the EU has a trade surplus with us, they buy more from us than we buy from them. We buy more from them than they buy from us. Then tell them, yeah, but wait a second. I mean, I also buy more from Tesco's than Tesco's buys from me, and I can't get them to do anything. How is this supposed to work? And then see what they say. I mean, I haven't heard an answer yet, really.